Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Food, Wine, and Whiskey in Your Own Backyard. I am Rob, your host, and today's show is going to be, I think, fun. I think a little bit educational. I think maybe a little bit scary at times. I'm not sure. Not sure quite what to expect, but I have Tyler Martin joining us, Darryl Bowman, and Jordan Hill. And thank you guys first for joining us and coming on the show.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, dude.
So this particular episode, I thought I wanted to do it, Darryl, because I had seen a few postings with the hashtag FB2020 and had no clue what that meant. And a few of my friends asked me, what's going on with this, Facebook 2020? And I asked you, and it absolutely wasn't Facebook 2020. It's actually fuck Bourbon 2020. And so I started to ask you the question on, where did that come from? How did that come to be? And you started to give me the answer, and I thought, man, this would be a good show to just put this on a podcast, have the conversation, have the discussion, let people hear kind of what's going on with the, should we call it a movement? Is that what it is?
I think it is a movement now.
Yeah.
I mean, I would call it a movement, but
It's definitely a stance, a position you're taking.
yeah, you can say that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd get a tattoo of it. No.
So initially, I thought, there's some things that people are pissed off about.
Yeah.
And I didn't know exactly what those were. And then come to find out, it's not just about being pissed off. It's also about kind of getting the word out or educating people who have jumped into bourbon, but that's the only spirit that they're kind of into right now, to also kind of let them know that there's some other really cool stuff out there to kind of take part in as well.
That's right.
All right.
Yeah. I think what it is tired of the bullshit around bourbon. And I know every hobby has its bullshit, but for some reason, to me, bourbon has the biggest man pussies out there of any hobby. Like gun enthusiasts, like they have their own level of crazy. Every hobby's got crazy, but the giant man children in the bourbon scene is obnoxious. And so I think Mr. Hill and Mr. O'Mara are two of they're kind of the founding fathers of the FB 2020 movement. But it's kind of taken hold. Its grassroots really landed in bad wine reviews, and so it's kind of a safe haven for the bad wine or for the FB 2020ers
To be able to express themselves.
Exactly, without retribution.
Well, I think first the listeners would want to know, now that they kind of have an idea of what FB 2020 is, can we get some background on how it started, how it came to be, what triggered this? Was there an isolated incident? Was this kind of a variety of things that just kind of the bubble popped?
I wouldn't say there was like a singular triggering event or anything like that. I guess a little bit about my background. I've always been like a bourbon guy, but 5-6 years ago, I thought a nice bottle of bourbon was Woodford. And I guess within the last probably 2 or 3 years, I really jumped in with the barrel picks and the local scene, and just it's almost like information overload, which I think there's some groups out there that it's a good sort of it can set you up for a good foundation, I guess you will. I think that being in there, obviously I've met some really cool people, some people I consider friends that I see being friends with for a long time, but I've seen a lot of dickheads in there.
Yeah.
And it's people get super butthurt about this, or hey, I didn't get a bottle, or hey, this sold out, or hey, this guy got one and flipped it, and hey, like there's just so much drama. And you can see post after post of like, hey, I found this bottle of Blanton's, or hey, is this good? And so you get burnt out from seeing this stuff. And yes, I still like bourbon, I still drink bourbon, but it's something where at this point, I think there's, like Darryl was saying, there's so many other good spirits out there. Your Armagnacs, your cognacs, scotches, that in my opinion have a much wider, flavor profile. I think bourbon itself, it's a pretty narrow flavor profile between really good bourbon and really crappy bourbon. Where if you have something like a scotch, you know, a Lagavulin and a Glendronach are going to be on two completely opposite ends of the taste spectrum. So, just kind of, I guess Fuck Bourbon just kind of morphed into a, hey, I'm tired of the scene, but also there's other good shit out there. You know, the spirits world doesn't have to entirely revolve around bourbon. So,
And I think that's what a lot of these groups are founded on. They're founded on bourbon, right? And so you get a collection of these folks that's what their life revolves around. I mean, that's that's another point for me is some of these folks. It's like if they didn't have bourbon and they didn't have like that scene, like I think some of them would die. I mean, that's really how it comes across. Like that it consumes their life. That's all they do. They have no other interests, and it's super lame.
Yeah, I guess for me, well, Tyler, you jump in, man. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, like Jordan said, we've met a lot of great people through these groups. I mean, Darryl and Jordan are two guys that I met through the hobby, and you know, there's bad people in every group, every hobby. You're gonna have your dickheads, but bourbon has become less of a community. It feels like over the past couple of years, where it's kind of every man for himself, and you know, everybody getting really butthurt when they don't get that one thing that they want. And you know, you go on a page for, you know, I'm involved in a ton of hobbies, and I'll go on a page for one, and somebody will say something, and you've got people jumping in saying, hey, that's a cool take, let's talk about that. Or, you know, I really like what you're enjoying here. You know, maybe the next step is to try this. It just seems like in bourbon, it's, you know, here's what I'm drinking, and the first 5 people are like, oh, you're stupid for drinking that, and you're a newbie, and you know, you should just quit the hobby. And it just feels like it's become just not really a community anymore. And I don't know, I think that was one of the things that kind of started off the whole movement, if you want to call it that. It's just, you know, people just get so ridiculous. And that's the kind of, I think, the big misconception, and people get butthurt about the whole FB 2020. It's not us saying that bourbon sucks or is inferior to anything else. It's just about the people in the community that it's just not what it used to be.
Yeah, for me, I would say, you know, I would, for a while, well, I think most people join these groups, one, to get more educated, and if it's a spirit that either they have some knowledge in or they don't, and they want to gain some knowledge, they join these groups, one, to do that, and two, to try to meet other people that like what they like. And I've seen in some of the groups that, you know, to what you're saying, Tyler, when you post and you give an opinion, or you want to show that you're drinking a particular bottle and say that you like it, you get reamed for having that opinion about it. And I know a lot of my friends, or several of my friends anyway, have said, hey, look, I've just kind of pulled back on posting because it's just kind of, it's no fun anymore. You know, It's just, it's a risk. You're putting it out there just to put a big target on yourself.
you know, but and also I think, you know, because I'll be the first to admit that I'm a dick online. I mean, I can come across as a dick online. Like, I have no qualms about that.
Can confirm.
And, you know, but also...
But you're not saying you do what you're complaining about other people doing.
No, I probably do it.
Okay.
I probably do it, but at the same time, if I post something and someone calls me out, like I don't get mad about it. You know, I'll fight back, but you know, whenever I'll first join any group, for that matter, you know, it doesn't have to be one group in particular, but any group, you know, the first thing I do is I'm a lurker. I will, hey, let me sit back, sort of, you know, get the lay of the land.
What's the culture here?
Yeah, how's this go? Not just, hey, I want to jump in and, you know, I've been in here 10 minutes, like, hey guys, check out this bottle of Blanton's, when there's 30 posts prior to that of someone posting a bottle of Blanton's, and it's pretty much on every post, it's like, oh, this again, or, oh, cool, like, you know, it's the same comments, the same thing on post after post after post after post. So, you know, from that standpoint, I think there does need to be some onus on, you know, the members themselves.
Sure.
You know, whether that be good, bad, indifferent, you know,
It kind of, what I get from that is it's like the members are just getting on the posts. They're not really reading through and being active in the group so much.
Well, I mean, that's a personal pet peeve of mine, is no one ever uses search functions in groups.
Yeah.
Period. You know, whenever, hey, what's a good liquor store to hit up in New Orleans? You know.
Okay.
I can search that online and find that question posed probably about a dozen times.
Yeah.
With the same answers each way. And, just, I don't know if it's laziness or ignorance or what, but come on.
When you get the same, when someone posts like, hey, I'm drinking this, you get like a certain group, you get the naysayers about everything. So you get kind of the old dudes who've been in the scene for a long time, and it's like everything sucks but all their cool shit that they've had for 20 years. It's like, okay, well, we don't have access to that, so fuck off. Like, I don't have wax top Willets. I don't fucking have pics of Pappy and shit. Like, I don't have that. Then you get like the new people who are trying to be real cool, and then they're like, oh, that sucks. I actually prefer this pic. It's like, okay, cool story, bro. And then you just get the people that I think I generally have gravitated to. These group of guys we all hang out with it's like, they might give you shit, but but it's fun.
Right.
Like or they're like, yeah, that's huzzah, good choice. This is what I'm drinking.
So it sounds like part of the issue is a lot of these people can dish it out but don't want to take it. Is that fair to say?
I would say very much so.
Oh yeah, a lot of people.
So that I can see where that would become an issue. If you're gonna sling some shit, you better be able to receive.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Like I said, I know I come across as a dick online, but call me out and let's argue. Like, no, that doesn't faze me one way or the other.
Well, something that I've noticed, and I don't see as much of the bantering back and forth and the kind of the things that I see it a little bit, just from some things that I'd posted and things like that. But one thing that caught my eye probably a lot in the last 2 months or 4 months might be more accurate, is when picks come out.
Oh God.
And, we get announcements of certain picks, and then especially with what we're dealing with COVID and groups trying to be as creative as they can and as fair as they can with who's going to be able to get, an opportunity to get these bottles. And then once it's done, I would just see just droves of people complaining about, how it was shitty and they didn't get a bottle and it's all fucked up. And I just never seen anything like it.
That's the thing I think that I know, like, I'm not speaking for everybody here, but I know that was something that we talked about, that it has pushed us away. You've got grown men and women complaining that they did not get a bottle of liquor. If you take a step back and think through it, that's absurd. And the way that they acted, and this is, we'll just say what it is. Houston Bourbon Society, it's a huge group. They've done, and we give all those guys a bunch of shit, but I think those guys are trying to do the best.
They do a good job.
I think they're trying to do the best they can. But when you have 7,000, 8,000, 9,000 members, and everyone is vying for 150 bottles, one, be
You're
prepared.
Not going to make everybody happy.
No way. Yeah, exactly. You're not going to make everybody happy. And, the kind of stance like I would take in bad wine reviews, if something doesn't work out, I'm just kind of like, fuck off. And I wish that's kind of the stance they would take. Like, start calling people out and put them in their place. But the absolute acting like children is too much for me.
Yeah,
Well, and let's be honest. We're not talking about, Pappy picks. We're talking about Elijah Craig picks, or, things that, I'm not going to say they're a dime a dozen, but there are a ton of them out there. This is not a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. None of these are.
I'm saying that, and to add on what Tyler just said, that sort of, there's a whole world of different spirits out there. And
Right.
I'd much rather go and pick up a bottle of scotch now than to be butthurt because I didn't get a bottle of Elijah Craig when I've got 6 other different picks of Elijah Craig sitting on my shelf that, there might be a minuscule difference between the
Sure.
6 of them. So that's why I just sort of like, what, fuck bourbon, I want to go and dip my toe into these waters and see what this is all about.
So when you see that happen, do you, I'm not as dialed into the members of these groups and people and who they are. Is it the same people over and over again, or is it just across the board? Is it, who are these guys? Why are they? I'm in that group, and I tried to get the 2 latest picks that came out from HBS, both of them being Four Roses picks, and I thought he did it as fair as he could, with the current situation.
Right.
I didn't even get either one. And to me, I just chalked it up and said, well, check, better luck next time. I'll try again, and just moved on. But then I started seeing all these threads going around. I was like, holy shit, what is wrong with people? Is it the same people that bitch every time, or is this just kind of the culture that's in some of these groups?
Well, I think
not that the group itself. I don't want it to come across like the group is letting that culture kind of exist. I don't think that's anything that those people who run those groups want, but it's there.
Well, I mean, anytime where demand is going to exceed supply, someone's going to be butthurt.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
But why butthurt? I mean, butthurt means you have an expectation that you should have got one.
Well, I think
entitlement, man.
That's it becomes an entitlement complex. So you have people who, if they think, oh, I post a lot, I'm entitled to a bottle, or oh, I'm, almost like a God complex, where like, oh, I am, more involved in the scene, or my collection's better, so I deserve a pick. I think might have something to do with it.
Okay.
I think that's exactly right. And to the people that complain, I mean, Tyler and Jordan have been in there a lot longer than I have, but what I've seen lately, it's a lot more people that I don't know. A lot of newer people seem to be the ones complaining, and I mean, you've got some old members that complain, but not as much as I see. Like the specs release last year. I mean, all the people that lined up for that. I mean, normally you'd see kind of the same faces and you recognize people. I didn't recognize probably 80% of the people in that line. Especially the people in the front, like the first 25, I had no idea who those people were. And so, and kudos to them, the group has exploded in the past 2 years. So, I mean, their rate of new members is substantial. But I've seen more new people that, I don't know, but I think Jordan hit a nail on the head. It's entitlement. It's exactly, I'm in HBS, therefore I should get this release.
Different for me. Tyler, any other thoughts on that?
No, I think Jordan nailed it. It's the sense of I've been around for a while. I've been a member longer than most of these people, so I should get first dibs. And I think on one of the recent releases, it might have even been one of the Four Roses when, people were complaining about the method that they used to release it. And I kind of played a game of devil's advocate, and pretty much any option you could throw out there for a, quote, better way to do it, I could poke a hole in it that someone would get upset. There really is no perfect way to do it, and people can't accept that and just say, you know what, there's 9,000 people that want 100 bottles. The math just doesn't work.
Yeah.
I don't get every pick. I don't expect to get every pick, and if I don't, I really don't care because, this is not a podcast about single barrels, but there's a very strong misconception that store picks are inherently better than everything else, and that's just not true. And I giggle a little bit when I see people online saying, oh, Elijah Craig store picks are my favorite. Well, you could have two that are completely different. One of them is, inarguably great, and another one just sucks. And so just saying I like all Elijah Craig single barrels makes no sense. So the people that think I have to have this one because I love this product and this is going to be a better version of what's on the shelf, that's just wrong. And so if I don't get one, it's not the end of the world.
I do think you're exactly right. There's this, I don't know if you call it a phenomenon or what's going on with store picks, but not even just from our market here in Houston, but I know a lot of people who try to get on different sites and maybe are a member of national groups or different groups around the country for whatever reason, and are always trying to get those store picks from wherever.
Right.
What I mean, you've talked about it a little bit, Tyler, but what has created that?
I think it goes back to kind of the early days of bourbon groups and doing barrel picks. There's a couple of groups that have been around for a long time that were doing picks before really it was a thing, before the barrel program was really a thing at a lot of these distilleries. And they kind of became known for doing some legendary picks because they had relationships with the distilleries, and when they went, the distillery would legitimately roll out some great barrels for them to try and to buy. And some of those picks have become very, very valuable. And so that kind of built this thought, I guess, that anytime you see a store pick, you see a little gold sticker or you see a label on there saying selected by so-and-so, that it's just going to inherently be better. And the simple fact of the matter is there are so many private barrels that get sold now that I think, frankly, sometimes they're not really anything special. And in fact, I think sometimes they may almost be inferior barrels that just get culled out because they don't fit the profile.
Okay, that's what I wanted to ask you, because that's what I've heard recently, is a lot of distilleries now are, like you just said, if it's not in our profile, then we're going to put those to the side and they can be a barrel pick for somebody.
Well, and the other thing, I'll just kind of go back a little bit. Like, I think another thing, and I'm getting a little philosophical with it, I think it's human nature to sort of be in that small group of I got it and you didn't. Whenever you like look back to, every year there's a hot Christmas item that people pay astronomical numbers for on eBay for something.
Beanie Babies, man.
Beanie Babies. I remember, hell, my sister was a Beanie Baby fanatic, and my mom they'd go to McDonald's and run through a drive-through 3 or 4 times to get the McDonald's Beanie Babies.
To collect them.
To collect them all.
Yeah.
And so I think that has a lot to do with it. To kind of tack on to what Tyler was saying as far as the barrel picks are concerned, some of the, was it 1789, 1398, whatever?
1890.
Yeah, those guys, their picks are, historically just known as to be stellar picks. I've had a couple of them and they're really damn good. And I think a lot of times people will strictly go after a barrel pick out of FOMO that, oh, this might be a killer barrel. I've got to get one. And I think that your odds of, just because it's a store pick and getting one, and the fact that it's going to be like a once in a lifetime barrel are, pretty slim, coming from the barrels, barrel picks that I picked up, along the way.
I'll admit that I had that thought, that getting a barrel pick from a store or group. Now, I will exclude like a Specs or a Total Wine, because I'm thinking if it's a group of guys picking, or a store that has a group of guys that picks for that store or something like that, my thought was it's going to be, even if not better, it's going to be different, something a little bit unique and that you wouldn't get off the shelf. But it sounds like that kind of thought that I have, and many others do as well, is not the right way to be thinking about these picks.
Well, that's another thing to steal what Jordan said about the God complex. Like, some of these guys that pick, they really do consider themselves to be superior, like superior humans. And that's another thing for me with this FB 2020. It's like, you're not like, if you've ever gone in a barrel pick, it's not like you're walking through the warehouse and you're like sniffing the barrels and you are hand picking out barrels to try. Like, they have them ready for you. They've already picked them out. So you're picking the best of what they have already provided you. That doesn't make you really good at picking. And like, every pick except for one that I've been on, everyone came to the same conclusion. Every single one. So it's not, so that doesn't mean we're good at barrel picks. That means that there was a clear winner every single time. And so you get these groups of guys who are like, yeah, we really crushed this one. It's like, oh, really? Like, so Space Cowboy is one that, to me, if you know anything about Armagnac and you know anything about cognac and you didn't pick that Space Cowboy barrel, you're an idiot. Yeah. Like, you would literally have to be, there'd be something wrong with you if that's not the one that you took. I mean, seriously, it was super simple. It was a home run. And so don't make it seem like your palate is amazing, because it's not. Like, it's just not.
And you're talking about the barrels that they provided for that tasting. That was the clear.
Yeah, like our OESO last year that everybody got so butthurt about. That was the clear winner. I mean, that was the best barrel. We all came to the same conclusion, and it just happened to be the OESO. It doesn't mean our palates are great. It just means that was the best one. We all came to that conclusion, and we're not superior for that. And people that do consider themselves superior are a bunch of assholes.
Well, and it so much of it comes down to preference, especially with those Four Roses, because they're all completely different. The one that I went on last year, I think all but 2 people in the room picked the barrel that ended up being the one that we brought back. The 2 people that didn't agree was one person who I really respect what they think about bourbon, and the other one was Al Young. Al Young says that's not the barrel I would pick, and we said, well, that's the one we like. So much of it comes down to preference. Even when you're talking about the same product, if it's Elijah Craig or whatever it might be, just being pulled from a different warehouse or a different rack, or even two barrels sitting next to each other can be different. So, it just so much of it comes down to preference that typically you can pick out what the best one is, and even if there's two, that doesn't mean that the other one's not good. It's just that's what that group that day kind of liked.
Unless it's tier 6 and they're all good.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We have to.
Every one of them.
We need to start artificially hyping tier 1. Let's just,
Telling you, man, that's where it's at.
yeah.
That's where it's at.
Lower level.
But when I think about guys and call them pick teams or whatever, groups that go out and pick barrels, I mean, I don't think you want them all to have the exact same palate, looking for the same profile. You kind of want to have some conversation, a little bit of compromise, and I would think there's some barrels that are probably close, that one might like one might, and it's just kind of figuring out what we think is the best. Is there some truth to that, or do you find that? I've never done that, so is it usually unanimous or close to every time you go?
I've not been on one where we had like lack of a better term, like a throwdown, where like where people were split. You might have, like Tyler said, one guy like, man, I really like this other one, but for the most part, it's all been like we all gravitate to one because one just might be that much better.
Okay.
I do think that I forgot who said it earlier, but like I think a lot of people now just try to get something different. I think that everybody's looking for something that is completely off profile, something that is not a standard taste, and I think that that's what people are trying to go for nowadays is just try to get something completely different. Because for some reason apparently different is better, which I don't know. I don't think it matters.
Can be.
So let me ask you this: we made the comment about older groups back in the day before this with the distillery got as popular as it is, doing barrel picks, would get rolled out some really good barrels. Are there any groups who pick now that carry that kind of clout that when they go to make a pick that they're still going to get? I think about maybe like Lincoln Road I've heard of that gets some phenomenal picks. And is there any other groups? Does HBS get that?
That's a tough question to answer.
Yeah,
Is it?
Yeah,
Okay.
because
I didn't know if they had that reputation,
Well,
that people just knew, if HBS is doing a pick,
well,
they're going to get it, or Lincoln Road.
That's going to be the distillery that knows that.
Yeah.
And who knows what sort of internal politics could be going on there.
Okay.
Hey, we tried this barrel. I'm going to give it to my buddy who runs this store over here.
Yeah.
I think that there are, I can't remember what's his name, who used to pick for, what's the store in Lake Charles?
Oh, Matt Anthony.
Hocus Pocus.
Yeah, I think that there are individuals, regionally, nationally, that I think, even here in Houston, there's guys whose palates that I know that they've got good palates, and like if they say, hey, this is a great bottle, like I'll trust them. I'll go into it without trying it, without anything like, I want to buy one.
Yeah.
Not so. I look, and this is just me personally, I'll look more from an individual who I trust versus the group, because I don't know what goes on within the group, because they could be going in there for a certain profile. Like, I'm not a big tobacco flavor with bourbon.
Yeah.
That's not my thing. If someone goes in, like I know with with that Robusto pick, I think they went in there and were trying to find actually a tobacco flavored bottle. Which,
right.
That's fine. There's people that love tobacco. It's not my thing.
Sure.
I think that there was another Four Roses pick that was like mint heavy, or no, it was dill heavy.
I know Tyler did the mint one, right?
The one that we got was not super minty. The one that everybody talks about that was super minty is that Liquor Hut from
That's the one
2 years ago, I think.
Oh, yeah. My bad.
That's the one I'm thinking of. Like, which
2 years, last year maybe.
I'm not a big minty person, so if it's
sure,
if you go in there, if if someone's giving me enough recommendations of try this, and I like their recommendations, well, then I'll know that person's palate is comparable to mine, and so I trust that individual's word for it.
Okay.
You know, because there's so much subjectivity in it that it's not just a home run.
No, I think that makes sense. And I know we're kind of getting off, we'll get right back on to FB 2020. I just thought this was curious and,
Right.
and you know, educational for a lot of people to understand what's going on with those picks. Let me ask you this, when a group goes to pick at a distillery, do they ever say, no thanks? You know, here's 6 barrels to pick from, and does a group, do you feel obligated to, we got to pick something, they rolled 6 out for us?
I know some people. We actually tried to do that with Russell's Reserve last year. The 3 samples they sent us were all trash, and we tried to get the store owner to say no, but he was too scared to do that. But I know that there's people around that have rejected all the barrels before, but I think it goes back to the cloud, and you know I mean, you do it too many times, I think you're not going to get any more picks. But I think that there are some people that can do that. Like, I mean, like Wade. I think if Wade went on something and he was like, none of these are good, I don't think it would be looked negatively upon.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, to me, that would be fair because, you know,
Yeah.
your palate's your palate. You're looking for something. If you don't like something, you roll that. You don't like something, you roll that.
Well, then, you know, part of the whole, in my opinion, part of the reasons that, you know, in the whole fuck bourbon thing is just from stores and distilleries and picks and not wanting to rock the boat, like, just because of how quickly and how big it's gotten. And, you know, like anything else, politics gets involved, and then, you know, that's a whole different can of worms you can open up with, you know, like Darryl was saying, store not wanting to reject because it's going to hurt them if they try to get future picks
Right.
and that sort of thing. So they, hey, we'll take this shitty barrel just to be able to have
An opportunity.
4 more barrels in the future. And so, you know, or if a distillery offers them, hey, do you guys want this barrel? It's like, nah, it may not be good, but...
And I asked the question because I've seen some picks come out, and the initial response would be like, that ain't good. You know, they made that pick, but it ain't good. So I'm wondering, that's why I asked the question.
No.
And my favorite thing that it pisses me off is the people who pick stuff. If you tell them you don't like it, some people get so freaking butthurt about it. Like, if people don't like something that like I picked, I don't give a shit. Like, it does not bother me at all.
It shouldn't.
No, like I take zero offense to that. But there are some people that, man, if you say that, no, I didn't care for that, I mean, they take it so personally. And that's just another thing. It's like, you're a child. Like, you know, but they're the same folks like, bourbon's for everybody. We're not all going to like the same stuff. But then if you don't like something that they did, it's end of the world for them.
To me, if you have something that you don't like and I do, I'm just going to ask you to give me that bottle. If you don't want to drink it, I will. You know?
Yeah.
Or I'll give it to somebody else. I can name several times I've bought a bottle of something and go, I just don't like it. Old Ezra 7 would be one. And a buddy would go, I love that. And I'd go, hey, take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Darryl, why are you looking
Yeah,
at
I
me
mean-
like you don't like old Ezra 7, you dumbass?
I like it. Yeah.
Go ahead, Tyler. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, back to your original question about rejecting barrels. I mean, I've been on one pick where we turned samples down, but it was where they had sent samples to us in Houston. I don't know the numbers on this, but I would be willing to bet that the number of stores that travel to Kentucky and turn down a barrel is minuscule, because you've already spent all that time and effort. You're bringing a barrel back, and let's face it, it's going to sell. You could take, Evan Williams White Label and age it in a tequila barrel and put it in a bottle, slap a sticker on it, it's going to sell. And at that point, the store has done their job. They have made money, and some stores really care about building a reputation for picks. Some, frankly, don't. And so if you get a barrel that's, 6.5 out of 10, that's fine. It's not bad. It's going to sell. So from an economic standpoint, there's too much downside to turning a barrel down. I think it would have to just be everything is literally undrinkable. And most of these big distilleries, you're going to have at least one, at least decent bottle, because most of these stores aren't going in looking for the home run. They're looking for something that's good that their customers will buy and enjoy, and that's it. It's not really any more complicated than that.
Okay. Well, we got on that topic, talking about how people get butthurt about not being able to get a pick, and that being a big issue in a lot of the groups. I don't know what if there is a solution, I think it's just, what you got, it's the movement, right? Fuck Bourbon 2020. If you get tired of seeing that and hearing about it, you kind of move on from that and you do something else. You go to,
Yeah.
There's a whole other world of spirits out there that, in my opinion, are better than bourbon anyway. So.
Does that hurt the groups? Do you think, I'm trying to think, from somebody who manages groups and big groups, do you, how do you manage that? How do you kind of solve that issue to make sure that you have a group where everybody feels they can participate and have an opinion and put stuff out and not, it's a tough question. I don't know that we know the answer. I'm just throwing it out there.
I think you just need to be consistent. Like whatever you decide the rules of your group are. I know that Chris and Randall did that talk about like censorship and stuff. And my thought is just be consistent with how you run everything. Like you either have to be like ruthless and just like delete anything that is, that could be considered like flagrant, I guess, or you have to let everything go. Like for me, like I let everything go except for like, just blatant sexism, racism,
Politics.
No politics, like
Memes.
Yeah, no memes. We try to do the best we can on that, but some slip through. But outside of that, I mean, it's game on, man. Like, I mean, there have been threads where people are just destroying each other. I mean, just being absolutely ruthless. But you can't, I don't know, I don't like stepping in on that. Like, they're adults, let them work it out. But that doesn't work for every group. I mean, like HBS, I mean, they have a lot more at stake, I would say, from like a business standpoint. They can't be as loose with things. I make $0, so I don't give a shit. So,
I mean, I definitely see your group, and I don't know if you call it, is it fair to call it a fun group? I mean, it's just, when you get in there and you start bantering, but you're going to see some fun shit. I mean, that's kind of how I look at the group.
we try.
It's, you're going to go there for a lot of fun.
We try.
Yeah. All right, what
You're
else?
talking about a group that
Yeah.
kind of one of the running gags is post a picture of what you're drinking and I will be as ruthless to you as possible.
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of sets the tone for what to expect.
Yeah.
2-sentence reviews, baby.
I love them.
I do too. And I think a lot of people like them. I think a lot of people who might be new to your group and see that for the first time without an explanation before it gets started might go, what the hell? Because they might be a new guy who's posting something like, whatever, a nice bourbon.
Those are my favorite.
And you tear them up real quick and they're going, what the hell is this?
Oh, yeah.
But it's funny to see that reaction too.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I've just come to figure out just for myself, like, I prefer groups where they are more broad in content than narrow as to focus on something like where 90% of the posts are bourbon.
yeah.
I think it's a much more lively discussion. There's much more content, and it doesn't get near as repetitive.
Gotcha. Fair opinion.
So, but that's just me.
All right, so we've talked about a couple of the issues with what kind of drove the FB 2020. Are there some other things that need to? I mean, I want to know what's everything. I mean, I want to kind of air our grievances.
Shill bidding.
What is this?
Oh boy.
What'd you say, Tyler?
I said, oh boy.
No, it definitely happens. So shill bidding, when these dudes.
But you're not. You're going into, and I don't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
Yeah, secondary market.
Secondary market.
Yeah.
So people know that don't know what they're
Gotcha.
we're getting ready to get
I mean,
into.
for anyone listening who doesn't know what the secondary market is, essentially it's a black market of bourbon where you essentially can pick up a bottle of, say, let's say you get you win the lotto and find a bottle of Pappy 23 at specs. They'll sell it to you for $250. Well, you can immediately take that bottle, go on to secondary, and sell it for over $2,000.
Yeah.
So.
And trade.
And trade.
Yeah.
And trade. And so think of it as a bourbon stock market, if you will, where, essentially there's no hard and fast rule on what values are. Generally the rule is strictly comparison. Hey, this bottle sold for this a week ago. So I'm going to ask for $10 more this time around.
But what I've found, and I've not been in it as long as you all have, and I'm not going to lie, I do. I've never bought anything or sold anything. I like to trade. But what I found is it needs to be, or to me, my opinion, to be successful, it has to be kind of this national, maybe international. I don't know if it is international, but national at least. I think I see some guys from overseas sometimes posting different stuff. But because a lot of the releases are somewhat regional, and one thing I'll say is I know that we can get our hands on in this market, not easy, but somewhat easier than other markets, is like Weller 12. And it seems to trade on the coasts for it has a lot more value than what we pay for it, and you can get some things that maybe I can't get here as easily. I can trade for it.
Right.
So,
right. Yeah, I mean, something like Weller 12, we get pretty good amount here. It's not that hard to find. It's a $30 bottle of bourbon that you can pick up and, turn around and sell for $200-$300, depending on the size of the bottle.
right.
Or trade for, something we don't get very often here, something like E.H. Taylor Barrel Proof. Those don't pop up very often in Houston.
Right.
So if someone's somewhere where they get a ton of E.H. Taylor Barrel, you get Weller 12, and, I've
2 for 1 or something.
Yeah, I've traded Weller 12s for Taylor, for E.H. Taylors in the past, and, it worked out great. It's a win-win. The problem with shill bidding, is people.
So explain what that is, so people are going, what do they mean, shill bidding?
You brought it up, Darryl.
So it's when shill bidding and the secondary market, I think that's what has inflated these store picks to an absurd place. I think that has helped drive the store pick insanity. But basically, if let's say I have a bottle and I'll go on there and I'll say, okay, I post the bottle. Well, you'll come back and I'll set it for an auction, for example. You'll come up and you'll bid something absurd. Then Jordan will come and bid something absurd. And then we'll artificially inflate that market for that particular bottle to a point that it's not worth that, but we have made it worth that now because it technically, quote unquote, sold. And one of the things with these secondary markets, you don't ever have to prove if anybody paid for it, if that bottle ever changed hands. So in theory, you could artificially inflate pretty much anything if you have a group of people. And so that happens. I know it happens. And so you're sitting there watching these bottles sell for an absurd amount of money. They're not worth that, but then now it's worth that. And that's what's driving these people to act like morons for these picks, because you pay $80 for a pick that instantly is worth $450.
So again, first, Tyler, any thoughts on that?
No, I mean, it's definitely something that's frustrating, and you see it, and it's sometimes painfully obvious when you get somebody that, let's say you've got a bottle that has always sold, or similar bottles have always sold for $100, and all of a sudden somebody sells one for $200, and the person that quote unquote bought it is selling the same bottle in another group at the same time for the same amount, and then they link that post and say, well, hey, this one sold on a cross post for this amount. I mean, it's pretty obvious sometimes, and it's when you just have to kind of shake your head and say, all right, this is part of the movement. This is part of the reason that we get tired of it.
So my first question would be, is that a big group who's doing that? Because I'm thinking if it's 4 or 5 guys, you're going to kind of be able to identify those based on that history, right?
There's so many secondary groups that it's easy to hide out in.
Okay.
Yeah, since there used to be one big secondary group for the most part, and Zuckerberg kind of came in and bombed it. I want to say that group at its peak had close to 40,000 members.
Oh, wow.
And now it's splintered out to, there's so many groups. There's even groups now that are, one thing about the secondary that, people typically were very anal about was transparency, prices, that sort of stuff being out in the open. Like, hey, this is what this is selling for. So you have some sort of reference to go back and go, well, hey, these last 4 sales have been ABCD. now even, there's what's, essentially a direct message secondary groups now.
Really?
Where it's basically you post what you got and, basically sort the whole thing out over PM.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so, and that one's a very much, like, you get in that group or group like that, you better know what you're doing, or you can get hosed with a quickness.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that is a contributing factor to FB 2020.
Oh yeah.
So we're not against the secondary market. We're not against, the trading, the buying, the selling. I mean,
No way.
We're a capitalist market. If you
Yeah.
perceive value, if you have the money you want to pay for it, pay for it.
Hey, it's your property, it's your bottle. If you want to sell it, sell it. If someone's stupid enough to pay, $1,000 for, was essentially a $100 bottle, that's on them.
Yeah, it just sucks because then you're saying that's just the market.
Right.
And that's another thing that people bitch so hard about is like flipping. Like, so flipping is, you buy a bottle at retail or whatever and you flip it for whatever profit. And God, that's something I think that riles people up. And it goes back to the, I won't say any names, but when Specs before COVID, or right as COVID started, when they did that big drop and they
Right.
let all those big bottles out, someone who shall remain nameless picked up a bunch of stuff and posted about what they got and how great it was and then flipped them. And I think that's funny.
I think it's hilarious.
I think it's hysterical because the absolute rage and butthurt from people, just because all it comes down to is well, I didn't get that, so I shouldn't be happy for you. If any of my friends get something that I don't, I'm happy for them.
Absolutely.
Whether they flip it, drink it, whatever. Because in this hobby, it's nice to get a win once in a while. It's nice to walk into a store and find something. It's wow, okay, cool. Today was a good day. And if they choose to flip it, that good for them. I don't care. I'm not jealous, and it's jealousy. And but man, that seeing the absolute rage and butthurt from that post, and seeing all the people that were mad about that Specs drop, my loins are still tingling from that.
Any thought on that, Tyler?
Yeah, there's a lot to kind of unpack with the secondary market, and I'm with both of these guys. I have no problem with it. I'm a libertarian at heart, so if it's your property, you do whatever the hell you want with it. Drink it, sell it. I really don't care because it doesn't impact me. But one of the things that drives me nuts is when you see, somebody posting that they got several bottles of whatever, Weller 12 or something, and invariably there will be a comment like, well, wish you would leave some for the rest of us, or I never can find this. And it goes back to that entitlement issue. And when you see people selling it and people get butthurt that someone else has something that they don't have, well, it just kind of works out that way sometimes. And so to that end, I've got no problem with, somebody instantly flipping it. I may get a little bit of a laugh out of it, but, there are also people that get super butthurt about the, quote unquote, fresh flip. But a lot of times you'll see those same guys selling bottles from 2 or 3 years ago for 6-7 times what they paid for it, and somehow that's okay, but selling something within the first few days is not. It's very arbitrary, and to me, I think it's one of the things that drives me nuts. When you see people haggling over, somebody selling something for $4.50 shipped, and somebody says, "Well, I'll give you $4.25 in a label." Well, I can do $4.35. It's $5 on a $400 bottle. Just
No, my
don't
favorite.
be a dick about it.
My favorite are the old dusty, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 bottles, and someone gets butthurt because they got a
plus $5.
There's a $5 for shipping it west of the Mississippi.
So stupid.
You made me laugh right there, Tyler, because I've seen that a lot of times on some of those sites, and the next comment from that guy is, no, I'm out. I have my budget at $4.30, not $4.35. I'm like, really?
I know.
You're out over $5.
No, you see that a lot.
Yeah, I see it more than I ever thought I would.
No, and
And I had to figure out what GLWS meant. I was like, what the hell does everybody keep putting that when they say I'm out? Yeah. So you guys need to educate me real quick because it's on my mind. What the hell is popcorn when there's an auction?
So popcorn, the way popcorn works is the end of the auction. They'll have say it's a 10-minute popcorn. So once time expires,
Okay.
it starts 10 minutes, and so let's say the auction ends at 7. The last bid is placed at 6:58. it'll go. So someone can't just wait until 30 seconds before the auction
okay.
ends and go, hey, I want to do this. Like they'll add like just a little bit of leeway at the end of the auction.
5 minutes popcorn, 10 minutes popcorn.
So it's a 5-minute popcorn. So I can't come in at, I can't be watching my computer and
Yeah.
10
Think
seconds,
about the old eBay days.
10 seconds before, put in my offer $5 more.
Right. Okay. Okay. I've seen that. Again, I'm new to this, so I didn't know what that meant. But we're talking about guys who flip, and I see a lot of people get butt hurt, and it bothers me too. And I never shopped there, but I never really had an opinion because I just go, I'm not going to pay that and leave. But stores, people would complain about liquor stores, and I've come to the conclusion, in my opinion, is, I've figured out in talking to some of these store owners and things that, they have to spend a lot of money on some shit that's going to sit on their shelf for a while just to get 1 or 2 bottles.
Right.
And if they feel like, letting it sit on their shelf for 6 months or whatever it takes, and they can get a buyer at whatever price they set, more power to them. I really don't have an issue with that, but I see a lot of people just get pissy over a store that might have an Eagle Rare for $65.
It goes back to that entitlement thing.
Yeah.
I'm entitled to a bottle at retail. Well, I mean, I'm of the opinion that, again, I'm very much libertarian and let the market sort itself out.
Sure.
If someone wants to charge $70, $80 for a bottle of Eagle Rare, they're
Gotta have a buyer.
hey, they can do that, but I'm not going to shop there.
Exactly.
I'm going to spend my money elsewhere. I'm going to ridicule them online if the opportunity presents itself.
Okay.
So, I don't have any problem with it. I mean, and again, I think a lot of
But
that-
you'll still ridicule
Oh, yeah.
because
Well, no, because I think it's a poor business practice.
why?
I think that, if it were me personally, me running a store, just because of the way that I know that I operate, I would much rather sell those good bottles at retail and make one happy customer and have them go tell their friends and like, hey, I got this bottle here, da da da. I think that you build a bigger customer base in the long. I mean, that's just getting into economic, my economic philosophy.
I agree with that as well.
I think a store can do that, but also I've seen stores with, that are 2 and 3 times what a secondary market charges.
Okay. Yeah.
And
That
so,
gets a little ridiculous.
And so whenever you get something like that, again, I think it's their right to do it, but at the same time, when they're so off base, that's when I say, ridicule. $60 for Eagle Rare, that's a common one
Sure.
that I see. It'd be like if someone was charging $200
For an
for
Eagle
a bottle of Eagle Rare.
I agree with you there.
I'm not gonna, but I'm not gonna go and put every one of them on blast
And I agree with you there because there's a store here in Katy. You guys are familiar with it, I'm sure.
I've been in there.
Tyler, you been in there?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So he's the example you're giving. He's that store. I mean, he's the 2019 Eagle Rare. I mean, GTS is $1,000.
Yeah.
But in a weird way, I think he kind of knows what he's doing.
He
People
does?
go in there just, one, just to see it, and then they all laugh, but he's still getting foot traffic.
But not only that, he's selling bottles.
Oh yeah.
Well, so you have a lot of people.
Out of town people.
Well, you got out of town people, but you've also got people with stupid money that don't want to deal with the hassle of things.
Sure.
And so if you've got people that are super loaded, what's $1,000 for a GTS that they can just go pick it up right then?
Yeah.
And that's honestly kind of the way that I've gotten with I'm not spending money in stores anymore, in trying to build loyalty. I'm not doing it anymore. If I want a special bottle, I'm just going on secondary market and I'm gonna buy it. I'd rather spend $400 for GTS whenever I want it and pick it up. Have it shipped, delivered right to my house with 0 effort.
Because you're saving money in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
You do save money in the long run. And, having to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to maybe get something, screw that, man.
Yeah, that's one of my entitlement stories, a store that I've historically been very loyal with and spent thousands and thousands of dollars with. When season came around, I didn't get shit.
Yeah.
But that's not entitlement.
But
But
it's one of those. It's not entitlement to. It is entitlement for me to think, I should have got something, which I do. But
but to me, it goes back to that building that relationship with the customer. So, to me, a store, it's a good business practice to recognize that if someone is spending a substantial amount of money and dedicating themselves to your store, that is in this hobby a reward system. Like, hey, you spent $4,000 here this year. Here's this bottle.
Yeah.
Like, that's a good business practice. And the same thing happened to me. I used to shop at this store. I calculated it up. I think I spent like $4,500 over the course of like 8 months at that store. And come allocation time, nothing. And so I'm like, okay, well, screw that, man. Like, why am I going to go spend all that time, all that money, when I could take that $4,600 and just dedicate it to a secondary market and get what the hell I want?
Well,
Now, some people, well, go ahead, Tyler. You got anything you want to add to that? Comment on?
No, I mean, if we're kind of go down the road of loyalty points and how stores allocate things to their customers, that's exactly like allocating a barrel pick. You're never going to find a way that makes people happy. Whether you do it based on loyalty, who buys the most, or if you just put everything on the shelf and the first people to find it get it, everyone's going to be unhappy. So, if I'm a store owner, I'm going to do what's easiest for me and what's best for my business, and really not care that people get butthurt. But it's amazing how often people will post, "Yeah, I walked into the store and there was GTS on the shelf, but he wouldn't sell it to me because it's for his regulars," and just getting all pissed off about it. And that's their right to run their business the way they want to. I cannot imagine being in the headspace where I go onto Facebook to complain about a store owner not selling me something. I really can't even imagine it.
And that happens a lot.
A lot.
Yeah, the only comment I would have, if I understood what you were saying correctly, on that particular store owner, he had it on the shelf but wouldn't sell it.
yeah.
Yeah.
See, my point would
Basically
be,
said, this is
don't put it on the
This is
shelf.
from but you'll see that a lot of times at stores. They'll put it on a shelf and they'll even label it like this is for customers that have, loyalty points or whatever. There's a well-known store again that does it this way.
Yeah, I know. Okay.
And so they clearly say, hey, look, this is for our loyal customers. Here's how the program works.
Join the program.
Yeah, jump in.
Yeah.
And
I'm fine with that.
Before long, this is the stuff that you can buy. Yeah, no problem with it because it's transparent.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to go spend tons and tons of money at the store to get this bottle because frankly I don't really care enough about them. And like Darryl said, instead of spending $4,000 on shelf products to be able to buy something, I'll just take that money and go buy what I want anyway.
Yeah, and I've had people say to
secondary.
me, yeah, I've had people say to me, well, but you're buying that stuff, whether you buy it there or somewhere else, you're still buying it. And my answer was always, I support the local liquor store knowing I'm spending $3 to $10 more a bottle for some things, sometimes more, because I'm trying to build that relationship. So I'm investing a little bit, but I'm not going to lie, I do have that expectation as well. And I think part of where I've had some of those expectations is because it was kind of said to me, hey, look, if you support the store, people who come in and, are regular customers, we're going to take care of our regular customers. So just by saying that, it kind of implies that, when good stuff comes in, you're going to have an opportunity to get it.
Well, I mean, scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
Exactly.
The business practice is as old as time. I mean,
And I totally
in some
understand
ways-
that they only get it in so many bottles, so you're still not going to make everybody happy.
right.
Go ahead,
In
Tyler.
some ways, I think that method can sometimes be the most unfair because if it's, hey, I'm just going to put everything on the shelf and the first person that finds it, they win the lottery, they get it. Yeah, that's pretty fair. And if you lay out, if you spend this many dollars, you get these many points, you can redeem them. Going into it what you have to do. But if it's that kind of gray area, like, hey, if you become a good customer, I'll start hooking you up. Well, how do you manage that expectation? And what if you go spend that $4,000 or $5,000 and you get a call say, hey, Darryl, I got something in really exciting. You want a Blanton's? You're going to be like, no, I don't.
Yeah.
Not after, all the time and money that I've invested in building this relationship. So I think a lot of times that's the worst scenario is that, like, hey, if you become a good customer, I might be able to hook you up with something.
Yeah, you're right, Tyler, because there's no leaderboard, right? You think you're doing well,
Right.
spending $3 or $4 grand, but he might have 3 or 4 other customers that are spending $6 to $10 grand. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the funny thing about, like, specs, the way that they run theirs, with points and everything. There are people that spend, $5,000, $7,000, $10,000 a year and think that's a lot. I know people that, they'll buy all the alcohol for events that either their company or maybe their spouse is involved in event planning. They're literally spending hundreds of thousands of dollars with specs every year. So if you're in there spending $400 a month, you're nowhere near the top of the leaderboard.
Right.
You've got no idea how far behind you are.
I mean, yeah, not in Houston. I mean, and that's another thing people forget here. There's 7 million people in the greater Houston area. I mean, you've got people. I remember when the Louis XIII Black Pearl launched. 2 bottles came to Houston Specs downtown. A dude, some oil tycoon, drove down, bought both of them, like that day, like just bought, and so he dropped $60,000 in one sitting. And I mean, who knows what else that dude buys? So it goes back to the entitlement thing and like the thinking you're more important than you really are. And again, my 4,000 at that store, it's not a lot compared to restaurants that buy from that person, or even some other private collectors and stuff like that. But again, it goes back to like what Tyler said about that mismanaging of the expectation.
Exactly.
And so but again, like 4,000 is a lot to me, so I'll take my 4,000 somewhere else and go put it where I want to put it. So
yeah, and more than anything, that was just an illustration of there's no perfect way to do it. And so if you're going to get butthurt about the way a store chooses to manage their business, you've got bigger issues.
Yeah, totally agree. Is there anything else on what kind of fueled the FB 2020 that we want to touch on?
The only other thing that kind of irks me in a lot of these bourbon groups is this misconception that somehow bourbon is inherently superior to all other forms of booze, except maybe beer. I think everybody kind of gets on with beer and is fine with it, but a lot of times there's this thought of, well, bourbon's the best because it's American and it's our spirit, and we're going to thump our chest and say we do it best. But in the global scale of spirits and all booze, bourbon's pretty young. I mean, you've got wineries out there that have been around since before they even knew North America existed.
Sure.
I mean, they're almost 1,000 years old in parts of Germany and France. They've been doing this for so long. It's kind of crazy that people would think that for any reason bourbon is inherently better than anything else. It's essentially, you take what cows eat, feedstock for cows, you grind it up, mix it with water, ferment it, distill it, and you're going to tell me that that's somehow inherently better than something that's made with grapes or sugar cane or whatever else. If you don't like it, that's fine, but I get really irked when people, just can't fathom that there's another spirit out there that people like and get excited about. And I can remember the first kind of interaction I remember seeing with Darryl. It was one of the kind of local trading groups. It's all supposed to be retail, and he said, "Hey, I've got a 2-ounce sample of the Tennessee, and I'm looking for a sample of Louis Trey. Does anybody want to do a trade?" And he got roasted. Like, "You're asking for a $4,000 cognac? You're crazy." Well, he's offering one too, but people just can't imagine that there is a spirit out there where there's more than one quality product. They think Louis Trey is the greatest cognac ever made and nothing else comes close. Well, no, there's a lot of stuff out there like that. And so, I see those kind of interactions, and it just kills me that people just can't put down the bourbon banner and see that there's as good of stuff out there, if not better.
Better for me.
oh yeah.
So it's just them being short-sighted, that they don't want to go out. I mean, for me, the world of liquor, I'm a big wine guy, and exploring the world of wine to me is a journey that's just, it's a tremendous amount of fun. So spirit sounds like you're getting more educated on that, Darryl, but it seems to be the same way.
I mean, I can take a bourbon only drinker and ruin their life by giving them some cognac or Armagnac.
Yep.
I mean, in tequila, there's some, Jordan's the tequila guy, but God, I've had some tequila that you're like, why would I ever want to drink anything else? I mean, every spirit has, except for gin, fuck gin, but
So let's do that. Let's shift to the positive then for FB 2020, and it is all the other spirits that are out there. Let's give the listeners a few
in each of these categories that you guys like?
No. Bourbon's the best.
That's it?
I'll keep drinking bourbon.
You don't want them coming looking for what you're getting?
Man,
You're going to create a monster, are we?
I really enjoy just being able to walk into a store and getting pretty much whatever I want.
At any time. Like, I mean, that's and I got worried there for a while with like all the Armagnac and Cognac picks that have started, and thankfully people aren't jumping on that train because it is so available, and a lot of times it is a little more pricey, so it keeps some of them tater ass bitches out. But man, I don't know. Like I started in Cognac, Armagnac, and wine. That's where I started, in Scotch. That's where I started my world. But yeah, you can. I mean, to me, Cognac and Armagnac, I mean, blows bourbon out of the water. Jordan, I just brought Jordan a sample of a 1983 Grand Champagne Cognac. I mean, it's. I'll let him talk about whether it was good or not, but it's one of my absolute. I mean, that producer is one of my absolute favorites, and if I let some Tater and bourbon try that, I think that their eyes would come open.
Cost for a bottle of that?
$375.
Okay.
So less than GTS.
Well, the funny thing about it is, I was just about to kind of make a comment off that, is a lot of these picks, Armagnac picks haven't really taken off because people look at it and go, well, it's $150, $180, $200, that's too expensive. But they'll turn around and they'll spend $400 on a bottle of GTS. And a lot of these Lincoln Tata picks, you're talking about a private producer somewhere in France that distilled this and tucked it away in their house or their barn, and Lincoln Tata came around and said, hey, we want to try these and buy them and export them to the U.S. And I mean, it's actually kind of a great value when you step back and think about it. But, the bourbon drinkers think, well, bourbon $30 and up. It can't be a good value. But, it's just kind of looking at it in a global scale and understanding that, that it's kind of a sliding scale.
But also, you educated me last night that there's a really good $35 cognac too.
Oh yeah, I forgot we drank that. Yeah, I mean, there's now. I mean,
so we're not saying that you have to be at that price point for cognac and for Armagnac. There's some really good.
Like one of my starter. I say starter. Like one of the first cognacs that or not cognacs, but one of the first Armagnacs I really got into and like is the Delord 25-year. It's 25-year-old spirit. They do proof it down a little bit, so it's not cask proof or anything. Fine at specs. 25-year-old Armagnac for $65.
Really?
Yeah, it's incredible.
So Jordan brought up something that I think is something that these bourbon douchebags don't appreciate. They're all they're into bourbon for 3 months and then they inevitably become the I only drink barrel proof guy. Like that's annoying as shit. Cognac and Armagnac is something, it doesn't have to be high proof.
Right. It's typically not.
I mean, you have that, 80 proof Majesté over there that drinks, I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And it's 80 proof. And so you get a lot of these proof snobs that, well, it's only 80 proof. Yeah, there's not going to be flavor. There's more flavor in that 80 proof cognac than I would say 80% of bourbons out there.
I would agree.
I mean, it
blew me away.
And Jordan and I were talking about that. And don't get me wrong. I like bourbon. I like sometimes at night, like that is just the best thing to sit down and have. But what Jordan and I were talking about on the way here was, to me, bourbon's kind of limited on the profile. I mean, you've got your fruit, your earth, your spice, your rich. I mean, in those cognacs, you'll have all of that. In one sip, you'll have the entire spectrum of flavors. And then then you'll take another sip and it'll go the other direction. And to me, like, that's what makes the other spirits, like, I mean, there's some tequilas. He turned me on to some tequila recently that is an amazing drinker. I mean, no ice needed, just sip it and you're in heaven. And for $65.
That was the one we also had last night.
Did we have a tequila last night?
Yeah, it was like it's white label 1176.
What's it called? The font.
The Fortaleza?
Yeah, Fortaleza.
The still strength?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a great bottle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the agave on the top?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
Fantastic.
Did I drink that?
Yes, you did.
Oh, shit. Oh, my God. Oh.
So we don't want to share with.
No. I mean, basically, my thing is like I said, I was pretty much going hardcore bourbon for a good solid 2-3 years. Where that was, if it was a spirit I was drinking, it wasn't a beer. It was 99.9% of the time it's going to be bourbon. And to follow up with Darryl saying, like, I don't know if it was just burnout or, I started trying, sort of expanding my palate, trying some different things. And because again, I just think that you can get a pretty crappy bourbon and like a stellar bourbon, and there's not going to be as big of a difference if you do something like a sherry bomb scotch and something peated. You get into scotch, you're talking two complete, like, they're almost like it's two completely different spirits. If you look at something like a Isla Scotch versus a Highlands or a Speyside Scotch, it's literally two completely different profiles. Like, they're not even in the same realm. But I think you get, a good bourbon and a great bourbon, and even a crappy bourbon. It's going to be a much more narrow scope of flavor profile. And so once I got out of that, world and started drinking Armagnacs and Cognacs and, got big into agave and started trying different agave regions and, mezcals and some different, mezcal varietals and that sort of thing. And you start picking up some of the different nuances and those. And, again, it's just a much bigger.
Are rums included in that?
Rums.
Tyler's the one.
Tyler's a rum guy.
Okay.
He got me on the rum. So.
Yeah, he got me on the rum too. He showed me that Foursquare shit, and I mean, you talk about an entire universe in one spirit. Tyler could talk more about that. So.
Yeah, I mean, maybe other than Scotch, I think rum might be the most diverse spirit out there. And it may be true, there may be something about agave spirits that's also got a ton of variety. I just don't have enough experience with it. But, I mean, you can have two rums that, if I didn't tell you they weren't the same thing, you would never believe it. They're so different. And you can taste the difference in every island and what's different about it. But the biggest thing to me on kind of branching into new spirits is go into it with a fresh mind and don't think that you know everything already. Because I'm sure for Jordan, for example, if he's talking to somebody about tequila and they go, oh yeah, I know a lot about tequila, I love tequila, Patron is the greatest thing ever. He's going to roll his eyes really hard because I don't know much about agave spirits, but I know that there's a lot better stuff out there. And it's the same with rum. When people say, oh, Diplomatico and Bacardi, those are the greatest thing ever. Well, no, go into it with an open mind and learn something and find what you like. I think that's the biggest thing. There may be a certain scotch or tequila that, everybody likes that you don't care for or vice versa, but it's just about exploring it and keeping your mind open to trying different things and not, saying, well, I've already found what the best thing out there is, so I'm not going to explore anymore. That's when it stops being fun.
I absolutely agree with you. I'm a big food guy, and there's no way in the world I want to eat the same dish every night, right? I don't want to cook the same meal every night, so I definitely don't want to drink the same spirit or even the same, the same bourbon. I mean, bourbon across the board. I want to try different stuff within that world of that spirit, but also, other things as well, like Armagnac and Cognac, and my wife likes tequila. I'm not big into tequila like you guys are yet, but I think that's what makes it fun and makes the journey kind of, it's what you're looking for, is to try to continue to explore. You're never going to kind of get through it all, but you want to go as, continue to travel that road as much as you can. I think that's my opinion.
Yeah. I think that's part of like, where I would post like, FB 2020 on like a bottle of scotch. Part of it was, it was probably like a dual meaning. A part of it was like, literally, fuck bourbon, fuck the scene, and all the assholes that are in it. But part of it was like, hey, look, there's other stuff out there that's really damn good.
Yeah.
Spend
a little time over there.
I mean, whether you want, if you want to call it bourbon your comfort zone, get out of your comfort zone. Go.
Sure.
I used to hate like the first few times I had Scotch, it was like Johnny Walker, and I was like, man, I don't like Scotch, and I just had it in my mind for years. I don't like Scotch.
That's what Scotch
That's what
was.
Scotch is. I don't like Scotch. And then, and actually, it was Chris Hart. Actually,
Okay.
was posting about Glenn Farclas, about how much he loved Glenn Farclas. And then, so I started trying some Glenn Farclas, and was like, okay, this is good. This is Speyside with some other stuff. And then I had some other, that I started asking around, hey, where's some good scotches to try? And I'm like, I don't like the smoky, I don't like the peaty.
Right.
That's not my thing. And then they were like, okay, we'll try some sherry. Give them some Speyside sherries, try some Glendronach, some Balvenies, get into some of that type of stuff. Well, then I was like, okay, now I want to see what the, because I see people ranting about the peaty stuff. So I started out, and I had some friends, well, hey, if you like sherry stuff, try, I think the very first peated scotch I had was a Talisker Distillers Edition. 10-year scotch that is, it's a peated scotch, but it's finished in sherry. So I get the sherry, and sort of like easing my way into scotch on the peated side. And now, if it's, depending on the weather, I can sit down with a, just a smoky ass glass of Lagavulin and be happy as a lark. So
Yeah. A friend of mine described Scotch to me as like a minefield. If you don't know what you're doing, you can blow up pretty quick.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And it's another one. It doesn't have to be high proof. I mean, you get 80 proof, 90 proof Scotch out there that's just apparently I opened a Balvenie 30 last night because that's what Facebook told me I did, and
Picture proves it.
it proved it. But I mean, you talk about just an incredible spirit there. I mean, that I think it's like $1,300, but I picked it up before the giant increase. But that amount of money for that spirit, if you take whatever bourbon at whatever secondary market that's worth that much, that 30 blows whatever you've paid out of the water.
Yeah.
I mean, and you're going to get so much more enjoyment out of it, and it's just and that's the other thing, you can put age on all these other spirits. Like bourbon tends, like my happy zone is probably like 14 years and younger on bourbon, but some of these other spirits, they just tell such a bigger story. I mean, you get these 30, 40, 50 year Armagnacs and cognacs. I mean, that, like for some of us, like, I mean,
You weren't born
you
yet.
can't even fathom it being that old. And that's just, to me, that's incredible. Like you're drinking, some of these bourbons, it's like 7 years old and okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah,
So-
and people go, ooh, 7, 8 years,
Right.
9 years. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, meanwhile, my cognac was, at 7 years, was just a baby.
Yeah. That Armagnac, I think, is 32 years old. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, another spirit for me, I think I'm starting to see a lot more, I guess I'd say it gets more run here of late. And I've always been into beer.
Mm-hmm.
And always been into, I remember me growing up, I'm a lot older than you guys, but 25 years ago, Bennigan's was the thing, and I was always into, they didn't have as many craft breweries back then. It was more around the world, trying to explore the world's, the beers from around the world.
Right.
But today, there's so many craft breweries, and I've liked a lot of them around the Houston area, but I've enjoyed seeing more and more people post on some of the groups
Yeah.
about the beer they're drinking, and I've been able to communicate with some people and find out, and that's a fun one to do. I mean, I really like the beer stuff.
Beer is, so I have good and bad stuff. The beer, the craft brew, that's a big, deep, wide rabbit
Sure.
hole to go down. There's so many different styles, and it seems like everyone and the dog has a neighborhood craft brewery these days.
Sure.
I'll say that if you think bourbon or wine or spirits people are assholes to deal with,
Or is that
in
right?
groups, craft beer people
So I
will eat you alive.
Really? Okay, I'm not in
Oh,
any groups for craft beer.
So while Jordan was talking, I pulled up a poll that I put up in Bad Wine Reviews. Okay, and there was 167 votes, and I asked who was the worst, and the options were beer snob person, whiskey snob person, and wine snob person. Whiskey and wine were very close with 33 and 32 votes. 111 votes were for beer snob person because they are legitimately the worst.
Okay. Didn't realize that.
No, they're like wine snob people. I like wine snob people because you know going in what you're gonna get. Like they are gonna be pompous. But to me, like I kind of feel like if they truly are like a real big wine snob and they know what they're talking about, that's a lot of work. Like the art of winemaking, I think, is way more complex than any other alcohol because it's so weather dependent. It's climate dependent.
But I think the wine snob has changed from what I thought of it as. To me, it used to be the high class. You had money to drink wine
Sure.
and things like that. Where today, I think it's more of I think of a wine snob as somebody, whether it be a bourbon snob or whatever you want to call them, somebody who has knowledge in that spirit, that wine, that beer, whatever.
Yeah, but I also think wine people are like, I think of wine as like a snobbier beverage, I guess.
That's what I mean. You think it's
and there's people out there that have, coolers full of 20-year-old Bordeaux's, but like I also feel like those folks, because they spent so much time and they had to learn it and they know everything that goes into it, I feel like they're much more apt to not necessarily help, maybe help's not the right word.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say share.
Yeah, they're much
If
more.
I think
much
you're
more
interested in wine, I'll share
Right.
good stuff with you, let you see what's out
Well,
there.
it's not even just sharing the actual wine itself; it's sharing their knowledge.
Or that too, yeah.
It's like, hey, what do you like to drink? What do you like to? Oh, do you like this? Here, try. Next time you're at HEB, try this.
Sure.
And, I don't think you see that much definitely with bourbon people.
No, but I guess that's what what you're getting with wine snob people.
Yeah.
But yeah, to George, beer people are the worst.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
They're bad, man.
Tyler, opinion on beer people?
They can be pretty brutal, and it seems to be the new trend in beer snobbery is about adding adjuncts or additions to beers, and whether it is still, for example, IPAs. That's been the darling of craft beer for 5+ years now. And you're starting to see more and more of people adding flavors to them. Before, it was just using different hop profiles and malt profiles.
Right.
But now you're getting into adding, fruit to it and lactose and all these other things, to the point where, there's big arguments of, is that even an IPA anymore? My response is, I really don't care what you want to call it. If you just want to call it beer with shit added, I don't care, as long as it's good.
Right.
And that's the beer snobbery that kind of bothers me. And maybe it's because I'm not coming from a beer background, so I don't have the reverence for these titles, that an IPA has to be this.
It's also
I
because
just
they're trying to
really
defend
care,
their fruit bomb sours.
because they're the best. No, and then as far as wine snob, the only wine snob that bothers me is the guy that, either has a lot of money or doesn't, but just has this belief that if it's under $100, it's not worth drinking. And that's one of the things I've learned a ton from Darryl about wine. And I'm like, hey, is there a $20 bottle? He goes, oh yeah, here's 5 of them that are $20-25 that are fantastic. But you've got these guys that go, why would I drink a $20 bottle of wine? It's going to be crap. Well, that's not true. There's some great wine out there that's really well priced. So that's the only wine snob that bothers me, is the one that thinks that, and this is true of any booze category, that expensive equals better. That's 100% not the case.
There's some $100 bottles that are crap too. Ask John Legend.
Yeah. American. That's the problem I have with all these American cabs. I mean, you got these $250 bottles from these boutique wineries. Like, it's not. You can find a $50 bottle that's going to be just as good.
Yeah.
And
but you go Old World, you can spend
that's
$15 to $25.
That's where the money is, man.
Yeah.
Old World all day. You take a chance on a $50 Old World bottle versus a $50 American wine any day.
Oh, I was shocked when we went to Europe last year and walking around the grocery store, and you've got some really good, especially French wines, for like €9. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah, beer guy makes me laugh. Like, it's beer, bro. Like, it's not that. I mean, as long as you have the same ingredients, you can just make the same damn beer. every damn time.
But
It's not hard.
Tyler is right about the IPAs because I wasn't traditionally an IPA fan, but seeing all the things they're doing with all the fruit and, I think about, I don't even know if it's an IPA, that Grand Isle, Jordan, with the coconut, kiwi,
burner.
yeah.
That thing is so good.
It is so good, but the flavors and the fruit, and to your point, Tyler, it just tastes good. So I don't care what you want to call it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's refreshing on a hot summer day to sit out back and have one of those. I mean,
Yeah.
who the hell cares?
Well, it's like,
Well, yeah, and
well, I was gonna say, I mean, it's like, I'm a year-round beer drinker, and I drink more in the summer because
Sure.
I'm at the pool, it's hot, and I don't want a glass of, neat
Right.
whiskey by the pool, and so, I drink a lot of beer. Like in the summer, I typically don't drink stouts. I love stouts.
I love stouts,
I
too.
love stouts.
Porters, brown ales.
And like darks, porters, but those I like them in the winter.
Sure.
They're heavy filling. I'm sitting around on the couch watching football. Hey, let's have a stout. So, I mean, there's definitely some snobbery when it comes to doing some things, but I also appreciate. I mean, because part of me is like, okay, well, how over the top are we gonna get with this? And,
Yeah.
Then it becomes
Where's the ceiling?
right,
Yeah.
right. Which part of it is like, hey, everyone else is doing it and it's selling, so we got to do it ourselves. I mean, hell, look at hazy IPAs. I mean, just
Yeah.
the last year, everyone went from like, hey, this is just our regular IPA to our double IPA. That now, which I'm guilty of this, if I go somewhere and there's a hazy, I want to try that one. I want to order a hazy
Right.
before any of the other IPAs, just because I like that flavor profile more. Like they're going to be more citrusy, and that's what I'm looking for in an IPA. So, I mean, I get both sides, but yeah, that's a if you're going to go into a beer group with and have in your mind you're going to die on a hill.
Yeah.
Get ready for a bad time.
So I'm guessing you guys are in some beer groups. Obviously, I'm not.
I'm in a couple, but I'm not like a religious.
No, Darryl.
I don't. I mean, I certainly don't chase beer like I.
Is it just to see what's out in the market or do you give them shit too? Are you one of those?
I want to say that like I'm in a Houston craft beer group, and I don't think that I've ever posted once.
Okay.
In there,
Yeah.
it's not. I want to keep up with releases. That's probably what
Yeah,
it is.
that's what I was thinking.
If like there's a special release or something like that, or if something's starting to get hyped up, I know it's limited, it's going to be hard to get. I'd rather just be in the know and be in front of it.
Okay, for you and Tyler, the each of you giving your what you would consider the kind of most underrated craft brewery in Houston.
Most underrated?
Yeah, is there one that you go, man, this one doesn't get enough run and they put out some good stuff? Or do you have one? Do you think they all get what they deserve?
Well, no, but I think some of them put out some stuff that's better than others.
Okay.
Like I think some, like Copperhead, for example,
Okay.
like Seth. I think that the stouts that Seth puts out are top tier when it comes to Houston. So, the stouts that Brash puts out are great.
Okay.
Spindle Tap, the Houston Haze, that was one of the first hazies that came out. And I still drink. Now we can get Ghost in the Machine and get some other
Right.
higher quality stuff. But, if I can go into a gas station and, there's, I'm looking for beer and, there's Houston Haze right there, I'll buy that.
Sure.
I mean, Eureka Heights, they put out some really, really, really
like
good
them.
stuff lately. I live right by St. Arnold, so
They get enough pub.
they get enough.
Yeah.
But they put out they've had some really, really interesting stuff that they put out lately. That's I think is pretty good. I like a lot of the Buffalo Bayou, a lot of their seasonal.
Yeah.
They'll get in some weird stouts and banana and peanut butter and they'll do some fun stuff stout wise.
It's interesting.
Like those. That's trying to think what else. Ingenious.
Where are they? I just recently saw them on the episode with Chris.
Right,
I never knew about them until I saw that.
They put out-
haven't
they
been
put out
able to
some really
find
good
it.
beers.
Are they not in stores?
where have I seen Ingenious? I don't know.
Yeah, I've checked it, like H-E-B's and Kroger's, and I
You
haven't
put-
been able to find them, so I
You
didn't
put me on
know.
the spot. I think that they're draft only, draft
Okay.
and brewery only.
Okay.
But I know I've been to a couple places.
I was wondering.
It's all, but I've never. Now that you say that, I don't think I've ever bought anything from out of store.
Tyler, you have a couple of favorites in Houston, or?
Jamie, pull that up.
I don't mean to put you on the spot. If you don't, no big deal.
No, I was thinking while Jordan was talking, I think he probably called out the one that I would say is the most underrated, and that would be Copperhead.
Okay.
I think the hardcore beer nerds in Houston know about them, but other than that, a lot of people have never heard of Copperhead. I think if I look back to some of the best beers that I've had from Houston, the Houston area, most of them have been from Copperhead. The one main reason I think they don't get quite as much love is they just don't have as broad a profile of beer. They typically are making, 7 to 10 different beers at a time, as opposed to others that, Genius is making a new beer every week. And somebody like Eighth Wonder has got a stable of like 20
Sure.
regular year-round releases, and Seth just doesn't have the capacity to do that. He would rather focus on making the beer he wants to drink, which I really appreciate that in somebody that's making beer or any kind of beverage, is making something that they can really get behind and that they would want to sit down and drink, and not just everybody's making hazy, so I guess I need to turn out a hazy. It's more this is what I like. So I would say probably Copperhead. I think sometimes, and this is going to be kind of a weird take, I think sometimes St. Arnold is underrated for their actual beer. I think people blow them off as a mega brewery. They're the OG craft brewery in Houston, and now they're just a volume producer, and you go hang out at the beer garden and the beer is whatever. They actually make really, really good beer. And I think a lot of people kind of sleep on them and just think that it's tailgating beer. It's not anything special, but I think they're a little bit underrated to a degree on some of the stuff that they put out, which is kind of weird to call St. Arnold's underrated, but I think they just get blown off sometimes.
I think that's a fair point. Absolutely. And I'm one of those people you talked about that if you're not, big into craft beer, you may not know Copperhead, because I don't know who they are. So I'm looking forward now to going and getting some of their beers.
If you like stouts, man,
Yeah,
check them out.
Yeah.
Seth puts out some really good beer.
All right, guys. Last comments on FB 2020 and statements or anything you want to say as we close it out and finish it up?
I think if you're listening to this, just stop taking yourself so seriously. Like none of this, it's alcohol. Like none of this is life changing. None of this is like, you're not gonna die if you don't get a pick. Like stop. Everybody needs to laugh at themselves. Like stop taking it so seriously.
Yeah.
Like just enjoy it, share with friends, do some hoarding, do some sharing. Like I don't know, just stop taking it so fucking seriously.
We didn't really get into it, but one of the things,
Go ahead.
quit trying to profiteer off of everything, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Okay.
It's God, I don't want to open up this can of worms.
Do it. Let's go.
It kind of falls back to my whole my principles. Make money if you see an opportunity there, go after it. I don't care what you do, but keep that shit separately from. Don't use these groups and as a platform for free advertising, or don't let that stuff get so intertwined that it just becomes one big conglomerate of shit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know,
I understand what you're saying.
like keep groups and forums. Keep, if you want to do, whatever side project that you have going on, cool. Do your side project. But let's, try to have some separation of powers, if you will.
Okay.
So,
Anything you want to elaborate on that? Or?
add to that? Or?
I'll let Tyler go first.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a handful of people in bourbon, but I mean, really in most spirits categories that kind of see themselves as the game changers that are somehow leaving their mark on whatever it is, and getting into all facets of it. And that's I think if you're able to do that, more power to you. Who am I to begrudge you that? But it gets tiring sometimes.
No, it does. And so like one thing that I'm very big on is like transparency.
Yeah.
So, any giveaways, any charity stuff, like I mean, yeah, like I set out, to maybe make this like a side business sort of thing, right? And that's, it's not coming to fruition yet. But to me, people are always really cool when you are transparent. Like when people know what's going on and you're very clear with your intentions and your actions, most people are like, yeah, cool, go make that money, man. But I think it's when there's like a shadow, right? Like where it's like, well, I'm not trying to do this or I'm not trying to profit, but it's like, well, then why are you doing these things? Because otherwise you wouldn't.
Right.
So I think that kind of rubs people the wrong way. And I mean, like there were a lot of businesses that like kind of took off and I think were created from the original like bourbon secondary market. I mean, one of the dudes is now, he has his own, I don't know, he's putting his own whiskey out. It's sourced, but I mean that became a thing because of that group.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's I think Jordan brought up a really good point. But it can be very frustrating.
Okay. Any other thoughts before we close it out?
No, the only thing I was going to say, and Darryl already kind of mentioned this, the whole point of this hobby is to meet cool people, drink cool shit, and in 40 years, I'm not going to look back and say, you know what, I missed out on that one maker's pick, and it ruined 2020 for me. It's such a narrow-minded way to look at things and kind of a sad way to live that, I think that's one of the, to me, that's FB 2020, a lot of it is just trying to distance ourselves from that kind of crap and just say, hey, look, we've got a fun group of guys to hang out with, whether we're drinking beer, wine, Armagnac, rum, bourbon, whatever. As long as it's good and you can have a good time, that's really all that matters.
Let's be honest. Sometimes we drink bad stuff, but if you're with the right people, it tastes a little bit better. Not that it's necessarily bad, but not high quality stuff.
I will drink the shit out of some Miller High Life with crawfish on a hot day.
Yeah.
That's a terrible cheap beer.
With the right people too.
Yeah.
Just be a great day.
Or some Lone Star Lights floating down the river.
Some natter days.
Natter Day shotguns.
Yeah. I know we're closing out, but that is something that irritates the living shit out of me when people try to say that the moment and like the atmosphere don't play into how good something is. Like I remember having this one cognac, but I was sitting in France. It was night. It was a perfect sky. It was like 68 degrees outside. And it was just like me and my dad like hanging out, smoking a cigar and drinking this cognac. That cognac in that moment is better than if we go and pour it right now.
Yeah.
Like, I love you guys, but you're not France, and on a perfect clear night, like, chilling. I mean, and so people talk about how good stuff is sometimes, and it's like, no, it's because you were probably fucked up in Napa, and they were stroking your balls while trying to sell you some product. Like, that's why it tasted so good.
No, the moment is a huge part of it. I mean, one of the best things that I've had the last couple of years was a 21-year-old German brandy walking around this medieval town in Germany drinking out of a solo cup because that's all we had. And, with some of our best friends in Europe, walking around at night in a beautiful city drinking some, good brandy, but I'm under no delusion that that's the greatest brandy ever made. But in that moment, it was perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else? I mean, we can keep going. If you got some more issues and topics and things that we want to discuss and talk about, I'm all for it. But I will talk about while you're thinking, Darryl, Tyler, your point, I agree with you wholeheartedly. It should be about the people. That's the whole reason, I started the group I started, because I love to cook. I love wine. I like whiskey, whether it's bourbon or whatever it is. And it should be about the people. That's why I joined. I wanted to meet other people who had those same types of interests, and maybe we could, get together, hang out, and share in those things.
Yeah.
I laugh because let me say it this way. I laugh and I kind of roll my eyes and shake my head because it became obvious to me that with some people, they take it so far that if you're not in my group on Facebook, we can't be friends.
No.
It's like, are you serious? I mean, anybody I deem a friend of mine, if you don't want to be in my group for whatever reason, you just don't like it, you don't agree with it, it's not content it has nothing to do with me, hopefully, continuing with our friendship. But it's funny that I see some people act that way about Facebook.
Well, that's, kind of my thing in closing is just, check the ego at the door.
Yeah.
Check the agenda at the door. Check, at the end of the day, it's a Facebook group talking about spirits. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
Like, have a little fun. Crack on the newbie who thinks that they are pouring,
Got a Blanton's.
the greatest bourbon ever produced. At the same time, pour something. Show a picture of yourself and prepare to get cracked on.
Yeah.
And take it as a learning experience. Take it as a, oh shit, I want to do this in the future.
My response is, screw you, I like it.
Yeah.
You don't like it, I do.
No, that is something. It's like sometimes you need to get roasted. Like I've been roasted before, and like who cares?
Don't take it personally.
Oh my god. Well, or you know what? Take it personally. Maybe you suck. maybe you're drinking something like I don't know. Like I think it's good to get roasted. Like if you post a bottle of something that legitimately sucks, and you're like, now if you're just like, cheers guys, like okay, like I mean I guess like you're not really asking for opinions, but
Yeah.
but if you're drinking something that's complete trash.
If you post a bottle of Malort talking about how good it is, get ready to get torched.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
would you say it's fair to say that depending on their experience in the spirit, that maybe they generally at that time, because I'm thinking back, whether it be wine or whiskey, that I can go to a liquor store and look at the bourbon and go, shit, 3 years ago I thought that was good shit, and now I know it's not.
I do the same thing, man. I mean, five years ago, I thought that just off the shelf regular Woodford Reserve, that was like,
Yeah,
oh, I'm high class tonight. I'm drinking Woodford.
yeah.
Like
So I try to kind of go, okay, where's this guy in this journey? He clearly hasn't evolved yet.
yeah, and I think it's what is the reason you're roasting them? So like, I'm not going to roast them like for, like a label technicality, right?
Okay.
Like don't drink that because they're not transparent or whatever. Like I'll roast them because it sucks. So like if someone drinks like God, someone posted something the other day. It was like one of those like chocolate wines or something, and I just wrote that is complete trash. Like that's
I saw
complete
that.
trash.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like I think but that's the way you learn. Like we're not roasting you because of the person you are, roasting you because your drink sucks. And sometimes you got to do that to people, but I know that if like when I posted that Blanton store pick that sucks so hard, that of course then you had all the people coming out and like, well Blanton sucks in general. Like I'm one of those people. I like regular Blantons at $55. I don't think it's that bad. I enjoy it. And so then I know I'm opening myself to get roasted because I like $55 Blantons, and I don't give a shit if people come over there like, dude, Darryl. I'm like, whatever.
I think Blanton's is good. I think people give people a hard time about Blanton's because I think that's the entry level tater bourbon that people chase, that you want to get first. Is
I mean,
Blanton's.
people walk into specs like, I can't tell you how many times I've been in the liquor store and someone walk in like, oh, excuse me, y'all have Blanton's?
Yeah,
I'm just like,
yeah, right here on the shelf.
But I have no problem getting roasted for that. Like
Yeah.
I know what's gonna happen. So, but it doesn't bother me at all.
Anything else, Tyler, on that subject of roasting people?
No. I mean, I've been roasted. I think last year I posted a picture of some Don Julio 1942, and Jordan lit into me. Of course, he then followed it up with like, hey, if you want to learn about some agave, we can drink some agave, and we did. But you know what? Sometimes you're going to post stuff that is not a good take, and you know, especially if it's spirit you don't know a lot about, and you're like, hey, this is good. You know, maybe it is to you, but that doesn't mean that you can't learn from it and see what else is out there. I mean,
Sure.
And that goes back to the point earlier that nobody knows everything, and nobody's opinion is inherently right or wrong. Let's just, you know, see what else is out there and enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do have one more thing.
Go ahead.
There's some really annoying podcasting people out there.
Really?
Yeah. Like, there's some really, really obnoxious, terrible, and I'm probably one of them. That's why I haven't done it in a long time. But
Now, when you say podcasting, you're talking about, I'm finding that, you know, I think podcasting is audio, and I think YouTubing is video, and I know they're
Yeah,
trying to mesh that. Are you talking more video stuff?
I kind of group that all together, yeah.
Okay.
Whereas, like, you've spent the money and on, like, a legit setup here, which is actually, I know y'all can't see it, but Rob's setup is really impressive. But no, there's some really, really awful people out there, and I found that some of those are the ones that cannot take criticism.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that are like really sensitive. So to those guys, I just know that I talk about you behind your back.
So you're honest about that.
I am very honest about that.
Nothing you wouldn't say to them as well, though.
No, I have. I've just been, my comments get deleted and I get blocked. So, yeah. Anyway, that's all I have on that subject.
Any other subjects? This has been fun. I've learned a little today.
Good.
It's been fun.
We weren't as ruthless as
No.
we could have been.
Yeah, when you made your post, I thought, oh shit, what's going to be going on here today?
Yeah. No.
We are reasonable people, and it's just call us boomers when it comes to the bourbon scene. You know, whether we got burnt out or whether it got too big, or I can't give you an exact reason why. It's just a culmination of all this other stuff.
Sure.
It's just it's not worth the bullshit
Right.
for me.
No,
Makes sense.
agreed. I'll leave it at this. The most ironic thing about the FB 2020 thing are the people that get so butthurt about FB 2020. And there's a group of people out there that if you post post a bottle of scotch and say, hey, this isn't bourbon, but it's great stuff, immediately somebody's going to be like, FB 2020, right? Her.
Oh, I hadn't heard this. Okay, go ahead.
Endlessly amusing the people that literally their self-worth is tied to bourbon. So if you say anything negative about bourbon, even if you're just like, I'm tired of that scene, they take it so personally. And that to me is the most hilarious thing about all of this.
Yeah.
I can't believe, I cannot believe we didn't get into that. Because that was really, that's really the whole point of this was and it brings me much joy. And my favorite thing is if you do post, if you do post that you're drinking bourbon, that's when they get their biggest hard on. It's like, I guess you're back on bourbon now, huh? It's like, one, why are you tracking me and my actions? Two, I don't know why, you have such a hard on for this. And, but yeah, we've made some funny memes about those guys. And, I want them to, the next time they comment, they're going to get lit up. So they've been quiet lately though. They haven't come out in full force.
These are usually the guys that are trying the hardest to stroke the admin's ego. I don't know if it's trying to get on the admin team or if they just want to be on a pick team or they want to be part of the in crowd, but it seems to be a correlation between those two groups.
Yeah. I mean, I could understand if Brent Elliott, master distiller at Four Roses was like, that's annoying. I'm like, yeah, because that's your livelihood. I get you, bro. But for these guys that are just in these groups, that get one of the guys was legitimately I don't know, it just rubs me the wrong way. Why? Because you drink bourbon that it rubs you the wrong way. You douchebag.
Well, whenever they take it
we're
as
definitely
a personal attack, though. I mean,
Well, and we're the group of people, when I say we, me, Darryl, and Jordan, and other group of friends, that if we know that it bothers you when we say FB 2020, we're going to do it a lot more just to try to pull out the butthurt as much as possible.
Oh yeah, don't let us know you're mad.
Offended by that?
Oh no,
Yeah.
that's the worst thing you can do.
Yeah. Keep your eye out. FB 2020 merch coming soon.
Okay, I was just gonna kind of lead into that.
Podcast.
So there it is.
Podcast, TV show, FB 2020. Daryl's getting his truck wrapped in FB 2020 for advertising.
That's right.
Working on a book deal.
We do have a book deal in the works.
Tour.
We have a Netflix.
We had to shut down filming whenever COVID hit, but we should have that back up and running pretty soon, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
Big things on the horizon.
Be looking, yeah.
Will there be an extension to it, like FB 2020 and beyond?
I have no doubt it will continue.
I don't know. Our master plan may just be to get everyone off of Bourbon so we can just go buy Blanton's whenever we want.
There you go. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anything else?
We could be playing 4D chess with everyone. They don't even know it.
Yep.
Maybe you are.
That's what I said. That we might be.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I don't have anything else. Just you idiots, quit taking everything so serious and behave yourselves out there.
No, appreciate it, Rob. Man, this was fun and great setup.
Yeah, we'll do another episode. Maybe we'll do a follow up and see in a couple of months where the movements went. We'll definitely want to talk about the merch when it comes out, how filming's going, and anything else related to the movement. I appreciate you guys coming on and doing the show, and kind of educating me on what this is all about, kind of where it stemmed from, and what was happening with it. And so I think the listeners will get a little education out of it and a little entertainment of the conversation. So I appreciate you guys doing that. Thanks everybody for listening to this episode of Food, Wine, and Whiskey in Your Own Backyard. And until our next episode, enjoy your next pour.